where the temple was, they breached the walls, and from those 3 weeks until the actual destruction, right, the last 9 days was like leading up to the destruction, and then the destruction on Tisha B'Av, which is that fast day that kind of ends this 3-week mourning period. And so the 3 weeks are like no weddings and no live music, like kind of scale it back a little bit, some of the laws of mourning. But actually during these 9 days, we refrain from drinking wine, eating meat, except on Shabbat, obviously. We refrain from weddings as well, haircuts, buying new clothes. Like, it's so cool to see that the Chachamim understood that retail therapy was a thing, like that we feel good when we buy something new, you know, like, so things like that we refrain from.
But you can eat bar mitzvah?
No, so you would not make a bar mitzvah party. No, you
party, but you can have the bar mitzvah ceremony.
Right. You can have an aliyah at the Torah, but let's say people would either push off their party for a time where there's right afterwards music and festivities. Also, historically, it's not been the best time. Like I said, it was a time when the second luchot were shattered. The luchot were shattered. The first one, sorry. It was a time also when the Spanish Inquisition, the edicts came out. World War I broke out during this time. There's like a lot of things historically that have happened during this time. They're just not. It's like just like on the calendar, we kind of lie low. Like I remember last year we were trying to close on the house. It was either we were going to close before 3 weeks or after 3 weeks. We weren't going to close, like make a big purchase during this time. Like just certain. People would also even have court cases during this time if they could, because it's just like historically, like not the best time for us. So we just draw it back and focus on good things. And what we do focus on actually is learning Torah and growing. And we talked about last week, one of the things we focus on is ahavat chinam, which is baseless love, because the destruction was, as we know, from baseless hatred, right? The destruction of both temples. For baseless hatred, just hatred. So we focus on baseless love in order to help us counteract that as well. Okay. What I'm hoping to do today, I know Lee Moore said she can't join us, and I hope Cheryl, I'm just going to see if I have a missed call from Cheryl or anything. Like, I just want to make sure that I know she's really been enjoying our learning together. Okay. Just going to quickly send her the link. Though I think she has it. Has anyone spoken to Sharon recently?
I just saw she sent you an email or something.
Yeah, she sent a WhatsApp at 8:44 last night. So.
Okay. So we'll message her. I know she likes the recordings afterwards as well. So we'll just go with that. All right.
Is Betsy a new lady in the class?
Olga, you're here. You could say hi if you want to. I let some of the Jewish moms know that we're learning together. Go ahead, Olga. Introduce yourself. Feel free.
Sure. Let me see if I can put my video on. There I am. Sorry, I have no makeup on. It's my day off.
Enjoy, no makeup, your day off, no judgment. You know what I mean? No judgment. You're fine. I put on lipstick and eyeshadow 30 seconds before we started. So you're
great,
fine.
that works.
You're really fine.
Okay, good.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
Olga's a mom of a Jewish Aggie, and God willing, maybe a future Jewish Aggie, right, Olga?
Right.
Yes, Diana is going to start. We're just kind of waiting on classes. We haven't got the place for her yet, but we're not that far away, so we're just kind of back and forth. But yeah, she's just ready to
any help, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, all right, so let's catch Olga up quickly. What we've been doing is we're studying ethics of our fathers. So what's interesting is in the Torah, there's the written Torah, the 5 books everyone knows about. And then there's the Mishnah and the Talmud, which is part of the oral Torah, which was basically filling in the gaps or the lines between the discussions that lead us to the conclusions. So let's say it says keep kosher in the Torah, but it doesn't tell us how to keep kosher and what to do and what kosher is and what's the significance of it and what kosher accomplishes, right? So that's where the oral Torah would come in, the back and forth debate, the judiciary process, really, the academia that Judaism is known from is all documented in the Mishnah and the Mishnah and the Gemara, which together make so a lot of the Mishnah is dealing with laws, agricultural laws, legal laws, laws of ownership, property, divorces, marriages, all these like judicial laws, a little bit sometimes nitty gritty in a sense. There are 63 volumes of Mishnah dealing with all of those details. there's one section of Mishnah that's ethics. That's not what to do and what not to do. It's how we do things, right? So it's not like do a favor for a friend, don't do a favor for him. But when you're doing the favor for your friend, do it with joy. Not treat everyone nicely. Okay, we know we need to treat people nicely, but like don't judge someone until you understand what their situation is. And so what we've been doing each week is we've been focusing on one Mishnah and really seeing how on the macrocosmic Jewish level, like on the broader level, how powerful that Mishnah is, but also how it relates and resonates on a personal level to my own life, to my own reality, and to because Torah is meant to be eternal and meant to be vibrant and meant to be not just this document from thousands of years ago that either I could look at or not look at or relate to or not relate to. Torah is meant to actually be real in my life. And so, yes, the sages, and it's so interesting because the Mishnah we're going to study today, I think you're going to find that, wow, this is so relevant because the Mishnahs we've been studying, and I think Judith even after last class said, like, it's amazing to see that every single time we learn a Mishnah, there's new things to learn in our lives. So that's the goal of obviously learning Torah, and learning Torah together is special, obviously. And in addition, the goal of seeing how Torah is relevant to my life. So today's Mishnah comes from chapter 3, and it's actually the first one in chapter 3. You don't have to have a book to follow along. We'll read the Mishnah and we'll talk about it. Sarah, I'm going to ask you, since you for sure have the book in front of you, I saw the book.
Yeah.
Can you please read?
Where are we?
Hold on. Weird. It's a little bit confusing. It's a combination of interest. That's so interesting. Hold on. Mishnah chapter 3. Let me just see something. Sorry. I thought it was my notes say one thing and the page is different. Okay. Yeah. Page 116 in the book. It's Mishnah 17. And it's a little long, but you can read it, the English. You could just read the bold in the English, or if you want to read the full English, that's fine, because whatever works easier for you. The bold in the text is the actual Mishnah. The lighter font is the part that's like filling in some of the explanations, but we'll do that also together. So feel free, go ahead.
Okay, so it's on page 116?
Yes.
Rabbi Eliezer ben Azariah?
Yeah.
Rabbi Eliezer ben Azariah says, if a person does not learn Torah, he cannot have proper derech eretz, because proper derech eretz is learned from the Torah. If a person has no derech eretz, the Torah he learns cannot be properly absorbed. If a person has no wisdom, he cannot have true fear of Hashem. If a person does not fear Hashem, his wisdom will not last. If a person has no knowledge, he cannot have deep understanding. If a person has no deep understanding, he cannot gain a lot of knowledge. If a person has no flour, in other words, food to eat, he cannot study Torah. If he does not study Torah, there is no point in having flour. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah would often say, anyone whose wisdom exceeds his good deeds, to what is he compared? To a tree that has many branches, but only a few roots. A wind comes and uproots it and turns it upside down. As it says in Yirmiyahu, he will be like a lone tree on dry, windy land, and will not survive to see the good rain when it comes out in the desert on a sleepy land where nobody lives. Hi, Sharon.
Hello.
But anyone whose good deeds exceed his wisdom, to what is he compared? To a tree that has only a few branches but many roots. Even if all the winds in the world come and blow against it, they will not move it from its place. As it says in Yirmiyahu, he will be like a tree planted next to water, which will spread its roots towards the stream. It will not notice when the heat comes, and its leaves will always be fresh. In a year of drought, it will not worry, for it will not stop producing fruits.
All right, so interesting Mishnah, kind of longer than the usual Mishnah that we've studied. First of all, hi Sharon, I'm so happy you're here. We're on page 116. Feel free to read it. Feel free to catch up. Olga's joining us. She lives in the Cyprus area, right, Olga? The good thing with Zoom is we can learn like from all over the place, so it's awesome. Olga's son is an Aggie, and I'm getting another call from another child. They'll have to, I guess, hold on a second. Sharon, read up on 116 for a second just to catch up with us, and we'll just jump right into the Mishnah. So what is this Mishnah really talking about? So first of all, if you can read for us, Sharon, since you do have the book, read for us a little bit about his biography. Elazar ben Azariah was a very interesting guy. So if you don't mind reading his biography for us, on the right top side, he kind of shifted the way things were done in the study hall. If you remember earlier, we talked about, hold on, child is calling again. So Sharon, just read the biography.
Okay, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah was born a few years before the second Beis Hamikdash was destroyed. He was a Cohen, a 10th generation descendant from Ezra Hasofer, and a very wealthy man. In fact, he was so rich that every year the maaser of his animals was 1,200 calves. When he was just 18,
remember we said maaser is a 10th. So he would bring that was a 10th of his cattle.
Wow.
Yeah.
Gosh. When he was just 18, he was chosen to be the Nasi, or is it Nasi?
Nasi, it's okay. Either way you pronounce it is correct.
Okay, Nasi. Concerned that he looked too young for people to respect, he miraculously grew 18 rows of white hair overnight. Oh my goodness.
The strands of white hair. Well, first of all, probably taking over as leader of the Jewish people is enough to make someone white overnight. I'm telling you.
As Nasi, he instituted a major change in yeshivas. Until that point, only select students were allowed to attend a yeshiva. Rabbi Elazar decreed that anyone should be allowed to attend. On the day that this change took effect, hundreds of benches were added to the study hall to accommodate the flood of new students. Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi compared Rabbi Elazar.
Judah the Prince, we said, who put this book together, right?
Okay. Oh, yes. To a fully stocked spice merchant, since one could ask him a question in any area of the Torah and get a good answer. He is buried in Kafar Halma in this upper Galilee.
Okay. So first of all, we have to understand that he took over as leader of the Jewish people at a really challenging time. This was really leading up to the destruction of the Second Temple. So that means the Roman Empire was in full, power, control. The struggle was ongoing. So first of all, he's taking over as leader, as Nasi, we said, at a very difficult time, number one. The second thing we have to note about him is that he was so young, yet so wise. And there was actually a debate who should become the Nasi. And in a way, people nominated him. He won, even though he was much younger. And part of it was that it wasn't just his wealth, his material wealth, but his knowledge. He was extremely, extremely knowledgeable. And if you remember, in the Haggadah, there is a line that said, I am like a man of 70 years old. The author of that line was actually Rebbe Elazar ben Azariah, because he himself, he's saying, I'm like a man of 70. He was talking about his look, that he looked older. And what he did shift, as I said earlier, do you remember when we learned that how Hillel had climbed to the roof of the study hall to learn Torah because it was expensive and it was only for certain students or like whatever? Rebbe Elazar ben Azariah shifted that. He's the one that Hillel happened or like at a different time, but right now he created a shift. He said, this is crazy. We're saying Torah, which is wisdom that every single person needs. It's not just for the scholars or for the wealthy. Everyone needs to learn Torah. Now that is a huge, think about this shift of looking at eroding class systems or financial definition of people based on their financial accounts, or we still can't do that in America in 2020. So Rebbe Elazar ben Azariah is like, why should education and Torah learning only be reserved for these people? Absolutely not. And it's at that day, hundreds, like you said, hundreds of benches were added and there was an influx of students. Now, what's interesting is, of course, once there was an influx of students, what happened? there was an influx in wisdom as well. Because it wasn't just the person from the right family has good ideas. Everyone has a brain and ideas to share. And he understood that potential. That being said, it also now makes sense why this Mishnah is what he is authoring.
Manya, what's the year or the time range?
So the second temple, let's just look back at our chart because this is going to help both of us. If you look at the second temple period where all the Mishnah was compiled, so right here's and Olga, I'm putting this up for you, even if you are not on, you could just kind of see this, I'm working backwards here. Here is creation, the flood, Here is the second temple period. And in there, this is the generation of the Tanaim. And all of these are the Tanaim. And look, let's see where he falls out, because you can find him. His biography's in purple. So follow in the back the purple, one of the purple lines. It's very clear. This is why this book is awesome. You see how the purple lines? And let's find him. I'm going to find him. Give me a second. Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yossi ben Yehuda, Rabbi Elazar ben Shmuel, Rabbi Chania, Rabbi Meir, Rabbi. Oh, let's see. Why can't I find him?
Yeah, I don't see him either.
Interesting. No, he's definitely here. Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, Hillel Hazaken, Ezra Sefer. I mean, you could see first of all the time period from 3408 to 3828. So you see the time period, right? That he lived in.
Yes.
So let's just find his. Oh, it says which one's the Nasi. There's a line. A Nasi has a crown. So it's one of the guys with a crown. Let's find him. Why can't we find him? Could you ladies find him?
No, I don't see any crowns. Where are the crowns?
I don't see any crowns.
Okay, there's an icon grid, a map key on the right top. You see how it's
okay, yeah.
He'd be one of the guys with the crown, but I'm trying to find him.
But he's got it in purple, right, Manya?
I think that's what it said. Mishnah complete. Rabbi Elazar ben Shimon, Rabbi Shimon ben Yehuda, Rabbi Yossi bar, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. I will have to. I thought this would be much more clear. Rabbi Chanina, Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Yossi.
Oh, here he is.
Where is it?
Right, he's yellow right in the middle. If you find Bar Kokhba on the right,
okay,
move left. He's the second yellow.
Oh yeah, I see. Okay, I wonder why he's a yellow. Yellow because he's a primary teacher. I guess the back grid works a little differently than the layout in the inside. Okay. So
thank you.
See him? Do you see that now where Bar Kokhba is?
Yes.
Let me show you. Here it says the Bar Kokhba rebel. There you revolt. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah.
Yeah, all the biography.
Oh, the biographies inside the book don't align. Okay, there you go. That's why. You found him, Sharon?
Yep. Okay, thank you.
You can see when his leading was.
Okay, gives me a better understanding.
You know what? The beauty of this is we're gaining context. And that there's something very valuable of being able to put all these minds and these ideas into it. But look, time-wise, the year of 352 BCE, a sage is saying this. That's pretty cool. Right? Exactly. Okay, Sharon, you're muted, but I'm glad you asked that question because it gives us context always. So let's move back to the Mishnah. Let's just jump back into the Mishnah. What's this Mishnah giving us? Okay, it's interesting to understand that Rabbi Eliezer ben Azariah, oh wait, hold on, accidentally. Okay, it's interesting to understand that Rabbi Eliezer ben Azariah was young, he was wise, he was an out-of-the-box thinker clearly because he shifted the playing field with how things were, how Torah was learned, to who was allowed access to Torah learning. So that's awesome. But let's try to break down this Mishnah a little bit because it's, what is he actually saying? If there's no wisdom, there's no fear. If there's no fear, there's no wisdom. If there's no knowledge, if there's no da'as, no knowledge, there is no bina, no understanding. If there's no understanding, there's no knowledge. he starts off with saying what? If there is no Torah, if there's no derech eretz, but there's no derech eretz if there's no Torah. So like, is he just trying to like cover all bases? Like what's actually going on with this Mishnah? And it's so interesting that he goes on to like, you would say maybe core, bigger, abstract or noble values, such as derech eretz. Does anyone know what derech eretz means?
Proper respect towards other people.
It's interesting because the word derech eretz literally means the way of the land. But what it really means is being a mensch, being a respectful mensch, proper social conduct, okay? So it's a broad term, and you going with that big idea, and if there's no proper social respect, then there's no Torah. If there's no Torah, there's no proper social respect. Fine, we get that. That's a very holy thing, makes sense that the rabbi's talking about it. Then he goes on to, if there's no chachma, there's no yira. If there's no wisdom, you can't have awe and fear of Hashem. If there's no fear and awe of Hashem, there won't be wisdom. He goes into also, if there is no knowledge, there won't be understanding. If there's no understanding, all those kind of are in one section. But then there's this interesting like line thrown in here. If there's no flour, there isn't Torah. If there's no Torah, there's no flour. What is that about? What does my flour, my materialism, my food have to do with Torah? Like, I understand respect and understanding and knowledge. All of those are very lofty and big and important. But why is this sage throwing in here materialism? Like, what is he doing?
How can you study Torah if your stomach is growling, if you're starving?
Yeah.
You've got to meet basic needs. Maslow, a good Jew.
Okay.
It's the hierarchy, yeah.
So meaning you don't have food, you can't focus.
Basic needs have to be met. Which, this is amazing. This guy, I mean, I didn't know all of this. What a civil rights leader, because, I mean, if he's thinking beyond just, okay, if you're maybe don't have the resources, you may not be educated, but before you even get to that point, we got to make sure that you have food to eat. Then we can study.
Listen, I wish our public school system in Detroit figured that out. I had one of my girls who did Teach for America in Detroit, and the stories she would come back with, 2 years of doing that, I almost destroyed her as a person. I'm telling you. And she was so idealistic and so positive, but seeing kids go home hungry, and that the state was paying for food, and they were giving this microwaved wraps of who knows what, and she would use her own money to buy food for her class because kids were coming in hungry. I mean, so yeah, you're right. This is a very strong value, very important. Moving on, interesting is how then he ties it into the roots of a tree, that comparing humans to a tree. So we're going to put the humans in the tree thing aside for a little bit, because maybe we'll end up, I'm not sure if we'll end up getting into it today, but I definitely want to discuss why that is in here, because really the Mishnah stops at the top. There's enough there on the top to learn and discuss. What's this whole idea of roots and a tree with water, a tree, how it can handle tough things, how can a tree handle wind, drought? That also seems a little bit disconnected from the Mishnah.
It makes me think about Eitz Chaim.
Okay, go ahead, explain.
Yeah, that's a very famous phrase, song and prayer about the Torah that you say every time you bring the Torah back in.
Right, we sing Eitz Chaim Hi L'Machazikim Ba. It is a tree of life for those who cling to it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And she's, is joy in those who follow.
Mm-hmm.
Her ways are, Darchei Noam are peaceful ways.
Mm-hmm.
So, and all those who follow her should live with peace. So yeah, you're right, Sarah, that is a very beautiful connection to that song. And actually, we talked about this before, but we do compare humans to trees at times. I think we may have talked about this on TV Shot. Do you remember that? Where we talked about our trunk being our body, and our branches being our limbs, and our fruits being our good deeds, and our roots being how anchored we are. We've kind of discussed that. And in other areas of Torah, it says, Ki ha'adam eitz hasada, that a man is compared to a tree.
Yeah. I mean, in an agrarian society, that's a very natural
Connection.
very, I'm thinking here, we planted a few trees, 2 of them died. Tried to water them, they didn't make it in the Texas heat.
Yeah, but an established tree can navigate the heat better.
Yeah.
So really what this is, honestly, this is really an important directive to us as mothers. It's an important directive to the world, really. So let's try to start breaking it down. We'll see how far we get. And I have a feeling it may take 2 weeks to cover this Mishnah, but let's see what we can do with it for now. Okay, so we talked about who Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah was. We talked about what shifts he created within the Torah. So part 1, or I would say here number 1, in Ein Torah, Ein Derech Eretz, and Ein Derech Eretz, Ein Torah. If there's no Torah, there can't be basic, proper, healthy, mutual respect. And if there's no basic, proper, natural human respect, there can't be Torah. What is this really, really talking about? So Rabbi Elazar is basically giving us 4 pairs. He's talking about Torah and social behavior. That's one pair of ideas. The next pair of ideas he's going to have, and even the way it's structured in the book, is fear of Hashem and understanding, wisdom. The next one he's going to pair together is flour and sustenance and Torah. Hi, Dahlia. Oh my goodness, it's amazing to see you. So happy you're getting to join us.
Late.
You're making my day right now.
I'm late. I'm like,
face.
I was wondering if it was too late.
No, jump on. I'm so happy you're here. We're discussing a very interesting Mishnah that Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah spoke about in 352 BCE. That's what we're talking about, right, Sharon? Now that Sharon made it up. And it's an interesting Mishnah that talks about that Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah was very wise. He was very young. He came into leadership at a young age, and he shifted the playing field in the Beit Midrash, where it was usually exclusive for people who either could pay or came from the right family or, the right social pedigree. And he was like, what? No, absolutely not. Everyone has access to Torah. He put hundreds of benches in the Beit Midrash, opened the doors, saw things differently, like Torah's knowledge is for everyone. We're not going to allow social confines to restrict that. And it says actually because he did that, he increased the amount of Torah learning and the wisdom that came from the Beit Midrash during his leadership, which is clear, more ideas, more minds. Now we're talking about a Mishnah he authored that he taught. Number 1, it's divided to 3 sections. 1, if there's no respect, derech eretz, there's no Torah. If there's no Torah, there's no derech eretz. Number 1. Number 2, there's no wisdom, there's no fear. If there's no fear of Hashem, there's no wisdom. Number 3, if there's no knowledge, there's no understanding. If there's no understanding, there's no knowledge. And number 4, if there ain't flour, there is no Torah. If there's no Torah, and there's no Torah without flour. That's part 1 of the Mishnah. Part 2 of the Mishnah, he talks about a tree, how that anyone who's if your wisdom exceeds your good deeds, what are you compared to? A tree that has many branches but doesn't have strong roots. Basically, you can be really wise, but if you don't do something good with it, you're like a tree that has a lot of beautiful branches, but you don't have strong roots. And so a wind comes or something distracts you and you lose your focus and you can't actually handle it. So that's what we're up to so far. I caught you up in about 30 seconds. So now we're breaking down these 4 ideas to understand their connections and understand what they're actually supposed to take away, what I'm supposed to take away from. Because at the end of the day, studying Torah on a micro level is meant to be something that's applicable to a global world, but it's also meant to be applicable to my own personal reality, my microcosmic world, which many of us are spending a lot of time in our microcosmic world right now. So we need these lessons even more because this kind of stinks a lot. So we're just going to keep moving forward with positivity and Torah learning. Okay, so pair number one, if there's no derech eretz, there's no Torah. So you could say to yourself, like, what do you mean? You need Torah to be a good person. You don't need Torah to be a good person. Like, I'm a good person. There's a lot of good values. There's a lot of good ideas out there. Yet, why do we need to know this line is so many of the morals and values that we hope to live by or instill in our children or our homes, or we wish society had made a norm. When we go back to their root, where do they come from? They come from Torah. So many of the ideas so far we've been studying, and all of these videos are somewhere on YouTube. If you go to Chabad at Home, they're there. But all of the values we've been learning about judgment, about seeing people differently, about celebrating people's uniquenesses, and also within ourselves. So many ideas we've covered so far in Pirkei Avot about being peace-loving and pursuing peace. I don't know, we've talked about so many more ideas. Ladies, feel free to jump in, those of you who've been here for a while, and share some. But all of these, at the end of the day, they come from Torah. So yes, it's great to say, I don't need Torah to tell me don't judge a book by its cover. My mother taught me, my grandmother taught me, but where's the first time that value is documented is Torah. So the Torah is really this bedrock, whether it comes to how we lend money, or when it comes to giving up tzedakah, what we're obligated to give or not give, when it comes to how we treat our workers and our employees, when it comes to like so many of the ideas that we talked about really are Torah values from 3,500 years ago. So yes, we could say I could be objectively a good person right now, but really if I just go by what I see or what society tells me, then there's a lot of room for subjectivity. Yeah. Because just, you know, I'm sure you've heard this, right? Subjective righteousness or subjective values, where my values trump your values. That's not a system that's based on fairness, or that's not a system that's based on really on Torah values. If my values are more important, and I hate doing this because I'm not getting, this is not a political thing, but if a cop could be shot just because he's a cop in order to make a point about Black Lives Matter, then we have a values problem. Because life and value of life, and again, this is not a political statement, but, and I'm not weighing in on everything, but the point being that Torah would never allow you to kill a policeman to make a point about someone else being killed. Yet we could say, well, that's my value. Where rights and responsibilities come in are a little bit different than my rights trump your rights. That's a problem. So we do need a moral compass that doesn't waver and that stays absolute. And Torah does demand that a person work on themselves. But don't say to yourself, I'll wait till I work on myself and then I'll look into Torah. The Torah actually gives us so many of those ideas, and that when we align with it, with really living with derech eretz, which proper respect, proper moral conduct, then what ends up happening is we can be an ambassador for Torah, we can be ambassador for light, ambassador for goodness. So at the end of the day, there really needs to be an alignment between the two. It's not good enough to just be a respectful, good person, but not understand where those values come from or how you can integrate them. Because we all know a society that just 60 years ago was such an upright, moral society, all the great brains and all the great minds of psychology and arts and science, and then decided that 6 million were dispensable in the name of law, in the name of justice. So we can't forget that our values can't just be like, we can't just go outside and put our finger out, this, and see which way the wind is blowing today and decide that that's our value system. There has to be absolute right and wrong. And really the Torah does give us that clarity. And I will say that so much of the, let's say, certain judicial systems or certain values that have become a fabric of hopefully a society, we hope it's a fabric of a society, really are Torah-based, are really Torah-based. And what else is important to understand, if there's no derech eretz, there's no Torah, is you can be the greatest Torah scholar, but if you don't treat another person properly, you're not living according to the Torah. And this is something that I think historically we struggle with, and we've discussed this. You can see, my kids know, my boys know, my kids know, when they're walking in the supermarket with a yarmulke on tzitzis, whether they like it or not, they represent God. Whether they like it or not, they actually represent the entire Jewish nation. I can go more incognito. No one knows I'm wearing a wig, right? So, okay, so she's wearing long skirts. It could be a trend, right? But when my sons walk around looking very obviously standing out, there are times where we think twice, because at the end of the day, let's say, I'll give you an example. We had a floor installed at the Chabad house. Terrible job, faulty floor. We tried once, we tried twice, but at the end of the day, we were not going to create a lawsuit in a small town because at the end of the day, we are the Jews of the town, whether we like that or not. So we have to always keep that in mind, that this mitzvah of making a Kiddush Hashem, sanctifying Hashem's name, or the opposite, comes in play. When a student's walking around with a Magen David necklace and they're treating someone incorrectly, it's not Sam is treating someone correctly, it's the Jew. So derech eretz, we must make that a priority in our homes and in our families and in ourselves, how we treat other people. Because at the end of the day, whether it's, maybe we should have sued that person, but at the end of the day, we really made a conscious, there are many times where we made a conscious decision. At the end of the day, we are this one Jewish center in town that people, we're very obviously Jewish, a rabbi. So when I'm driving the car with a menorah on it, I can't drive like I'm living in Brooklyn. As difficult as that is. You see a black Suburban whizzing around without a menorah, it's probably me. If it's driving very courteously, it's probably me with the menorah. You understand what I'm saying? Okay, what's the idea? And in an abstract way is that the Torah is meant to refine us, because Torah was given to human beings, and God recognized all the things that are listed in the Torah, do or don't do, act or don't act. They're given to us for a reason, because God recognizes I created you guys and I know how you guys work, and you guys could create some pretty good chaos in this life. So I'm going to give you a system to help you maximize your potential and be the best you can be. And that is why, ladies, we study Torah constantly. That's why we study ethics of our fathers when we're getting ready to receive the Torah. You know what's interesting? Ethics of our fathers, we said, this whole section of Mishnah tells us how to behave. You would think leading up to receiving the Torah from Passover to Shavuot, we would study, let's say, the laws of kosher. The laws of kosher, what to eat, what not to eat. No. That's just maybe how to treat an animal. Okay, that's what brand to buy. That's slaughter, how to kosher your dishes. But that's not how to live. That's not, Jewish law tells us yes, no, how to. It's a guide. Mishnah and Ethics, this section, is who we become, our nature, how to refine our nature, how to become a better version of ourselves, how to evolve. So really, this section is giving us a mindset. So this Mishnah, this part one of this Mishnah makes so much sense. If you are not respectful, again, all the Torah knowledge you amass in the world, but you can't live by it, you got a problem. And one of the gifts of learning Torah, and for me, honestly, teaching Torah, is it constantly makes me re-examine my own values, my own behaviors, my own character flaws, my own personality, my own issues, because I'm also a human being. I always tell people, Rabbi says, believe it or not, rabbis are also humans. I'm also human. That's why in Judaism, it's not just like the rabbis like top level and everyone else is just like a bunch of yos. No. Every single one of us has this direct relationship with Hashem and this direct responsibility to live a moral, proper, healthy, upright life. So this part one of Mishnah, and like I said, I don't think we're going to get to the full Mishnah today. Part one of Mishnah really establishes this mindset. If you don't have derech eretz, you don't have Torah. But you can't have Torah without derech eretz. I mean, you can't just learn this abstract subject philosophically, but it shouldn't penetrate and affect you as a person. But on the other hand, we get those values from Torah, because we can't just rely on society's values. And I know, Sarah, you said this in the beginning. You said you've lived a while so that you can see all these movements come and go, all these social justice causes come and go, all of these ideas like the banner and the flag of whatever the latest cause or movement is. Really, in essence, and I've had this conversation, I had a student who came out of the closet and he said, do you mind if I still come to Chabad? I said, not only should you still come to Chabad, but you better come on Monday and put on tefillin. I said, there's a Torah with 613 mitzvot. I don't have to tell you what the Torah says, whether you should be in a relationship with a man or not. It's not my business. It's between you and God. I'm not God. But the Torah tells you that you shouldn't eat a cheeseburger and that you should come put on tefillin. That hasn't changed. Meaning, I understand why there's a movement for equality and flags and parades for equality for LGBTQ, for people who are identifying or struggling with their identity. I get why there is, because there's been so much persecution In 2020, in certain countries in this world, if you come out of the closet, you're going to be stoned or killed. The Torah would never give space for stoning and killing someone who's LGBTQ, right? Meaning, I get why a lot of these movements and causes come about, because society is so warped that we have to but Torah tells us to treat everyone the same and not judge someone based on your definition of what they are. And Rabbi actually said to that student, he said, he's like, I'm the rabbi, I'm not God. I'm here to help you connect to Torah in whatever way you're ready to. It doesn't change the way we see you at all, like at all. And the student actually found that he's like, oh, I thought, you're Chabad, you're Orthodox, you're gonna like maybe say, okay, that's fine, but you're not welcome here anymore. Are you kidding me? I always say, what we did say to the students is, premarital sex is also against the Torah, right? We don't go over to each student and say, so yes, no, wait, no, here's a flag for because you're in that relationship. Okay, you can't come to Shabbat because it's not our business. So we're here to help people connect with these values and help them connect in a deeper way within themselves so that their lives can be an expression of that, and that they can live higher because of Torah. But there's no doubt that respect comes first. And it's something that takes work on all our ends. I would say even in our own relationships with our spouses or our children, there's that level of basic human decency, which sometimes when you're quarantined for too long, that goes out the window, or that becomes a lot harder to recoup and a lot harder to remind ourselves. But the idea being that in a relationship and to help people maximize their potential, we need to make sure there's basic menschlichkeit. And it's sometimes disturbing when you see people who seem so religious on the outside, but aren't mensches. That's really disconnected. And it means that they're not remembering this, that it's a synthesis, has to be a fusion. Being a mensch and learning Torah or being observant too needs to go like this. It's not like, oh, well, I keep Shabbos and kosher, therefore I could not be a mensch. Or the opposite, I could just be a mensch and be social justice warrior, but not learn or not pay attention to my Judaism. They got to go like this. So that's part one of the Mishnah. Any questions or thoughts or ideas? Because I know that this is it's a bigger Mishnah than usual, as I started off saying. Anyone want to jump in? Unmute yourself, feel free. Sharon, you want to share anything, or Sarah, anyone? Talia?
Yeah, when you were going through that, gosh, this was profound. I just was sitting in the moment. I want to think about this and probably watch the recording on this part again. Very refreshing. But I remember Sarah sometime about 2 or 3 weeks ago said, geez, I don't even know if the Thursday classes are necessary because, but they are necessary. But going back to all of the things that we learn and I just think every time I leave Tea and Torah or Torah and Tea, it's slow transformation in my mind. It's slow transformation in my life. And, this was just very, very profound. And so I think it goes alongside with, psychology or anything that we want to improve in our lives, that when it's based on Torah, it's going to be a long lasting effect, not a quick fix, because it's just not going to hold. So,
right. And it's interesting you said that, because later on in the Mishnah, it's going to talk about the connection between knowledge and integrating the knowledge. Later on, where it says, "Ein das, ein bina, ein bina, ein das." If there's no integration, then there's no knowledge. Like, I can know something in an abstract way, but if I can't integrate it, then do I really know it? There's knowledge of a certain value, but can I do it? Do I really own it? And that's so hard, which is why we keep learning it. Because we're human. We have our personalities, and we got our issues, and we have our triggers, and we have our past history, and we have our insecurities. And I know Sarah has been giving us amazing tools on Thursday to really take these in steps. step by step and bring it into a real practical way. But later on, what this mission is going to demand of us is action. And we said this before, that the best way to get ourselves to change a behavior, yes, we got to learn it and understand it. We got to have that level of understanding, but we got to integrate that understanding into our reality. So I think that the Thursday class and this hopefully go really well together. And I know I've benefited so much from Sarah's like recording. Sarah, today's email is going out. I'm putting a link to all the recordings so that everyone can get it, because I think that, I know I've gotten feedback. I got a feedback from a student last week who said, I've been going through them slow and steady and I've gained so much. So yeah, the main thing is that we should be able to take these ideas and try to somehow put them into our lives to synthesize it. And I think the more chaotic the life is, and right now I would absolutely classify the world as chaotic, the more chaotic it is, the more we need to go back to like basics.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dahlia, go ahead, jump in.
No, I have this, and I'm also integrating kind of guidance. I go to the Weight Watcher meetings, and it's just interesting how more and more different groups and aspects focus on human behavior and learning behaviors. And I'm just kind of thinking of what you said, knowledge is one thing, application is another. And I think, just the generation of habits, or just neurologically speaking, that if I'm connecting these two and it's a little distant, or seems a little, if you can bear with me for a minute, they had an analogy, which they're good habits, let's say exercising versus overeating, or we're talking about kind of how you behave or how you need to behave in a new situation. The first time it's like you're at point A and there's a big field with overgrown grass at the other side, that's point B, and you have an old behavior, an old method of dealing with a situation, and that's kind of a well-worn path. And so the first time that you actually have to take a different path, it's difficult work and a lot of deliberate thought goes into it. And then as certain, as you keep applying something a certain way, I think it becomes less taxing, I guess. And so that's kind of that second part of learning, of taking it from just kind of conscious executive functioning to automatic, sounds bad, but semi-automatic learned behavior. And each time that you do that, it reinforces that that's the way you should deal with that particular situation. So
you're smiling, right? Because you've shared these ideas with us.
What?
Sarah has shared these ideas with us also, literally about creating a new path, right? Mm-hmm. I love how it all, really, ladies, this all comes together in such a real way, Dahlia.
Everyone's got their hands on the elephant. Maybe a slightly different part, slightly overlapping part, but everyone's, putting their hands on the elephant in the dark room. So.
Yeah. And we're all going through this together, even though, yes, I'm in my own house. We're all in this weirdness together. And it's so interesting because Sarah, the analogy you gave about the field and I think it's such a good visual. I love it. I like, it's playing in my head now. I'm very visual and practical. So I need to that's it.
Yeah, they had that discussion last week and I like that. So
yeah.
But you go, what?
In Tanya class, we talk about this on Sunday night. I have Tanya class and we're talking about the idea of should I wait till my emotions, and later we'll get to this in this mission, should I wait till my emotions there's an alignment, or do I just have to do it? And in Torah's perspective would be hamaisa hu har. Action is the bottom line. Whether I feel like nurturing or making dinner tonight, or okay, whatever. My kids are old enough to make their own dinner. I'm they're right here, so I don't want them telling me that, they're all big. They can make me dinner now. But no, I'm saying whether I feel like it or not, I should still do it. I can't always wait till I feel like exercising or being healthy, or I feel we think our feelings always have to catch up to where our actions need to be. And sometimes we just need, like I said, Nike slogan is so Jewish. It's just do it.
Well, no, but what happens though is you do it and you don't feel like it, but what your brain registers on a subconscious level is kind of the impact after that. Yeah. So this, I'm sorry, if this was discussed last week in terms of eating, but for example, if I'm exhausted and I'm stressed, for 48 years, the way I treat myself is grabbing a piece of chocolate. and my brain learns, not at the, conscious level, but that reward means that I've taken care of myself. And then it's, and then it becomes a craving the next time I hit the next stressful moment, that's what's going to make me feel better. And so it's harder to kind of switch to what I just did, which is why I'm late, feeling funky. And instead of having something like that, I went on the elliptical for an hour because I said, okay, I can't think,
That's
but
amazing.
I'm not going to replace the not thinking. And then, on some level though, I'm hoping my subconscious level understands, like, I feel better afterwards. And so now the next time the stressful moment comes, I'm not reaching for the chocolate. I'm just saying, okay, when can I get on the elliptical?
Oh yeah, I love your
I need,
example.
I need to feel how I'm feeling after. And so it's like that field. I've walked on that field and trampled the grass. And now that other path becomes something that's easier to hit. An option.
It becomes an option.
It becomes an option. It becomes an option that's not like something that requires a lot of conscious deliberation. It's just, it becomes.
I love the example you gave, because last week I had a day that I was just like in a funk. There was so much to do. I was overwhelmed. My head was all over the place. And I was like, you know what? I have not worked out at that point. I had not worked out for like a week or something. I'm like, I need to go. I went into my room. It was like the middle of the day, put on workout clothes, did a half-hour like Pilates, whatever. And I came out, I was like, and I told my husband, I'm like, if I ever get back to that place, just ask me. I won't get mad at you. Just look at me and say, have you worked out lately? I'm like, I promise I won't get mad at you. He's like, no, that's dangerous. I'm like, no, I mean it, because I'm also trying to train myself that my body to feel healthy needs to feel like, even if it's not even physically healthy, even though we obviously know it is, I need to feel like I'm doing something for my health, for my strength, for my well-being. And I'm telling you, I feel like it's deep work undoing it. And I agree with you. Usually late afternoon, some dark chocolate was like how I got through that overnight, late afternoon. And there were like twice, last week, once this week, where I was like, okay, I need to go work out. And I did it again yesterday. I was like, I just half hour, close the door, do this.
Yeah.
So yeah. We're rewriting stories, and then later have the chocolate if you need.
No, but I know we're talking about kind of good moral code or good behavior, and but it's the same thing, right? The first time that you're trying to make that application of just from rote knowledge to action, it's a difficult thing to do. And then it just becomes an easier thing to do. And then your brain, even if you're not registering it consciously, the neurological connections are made, the serotonin, the good hormone feedback you're getting at the end is going to make you more inclined the next time to take that path because it was rewarding.
Yeah.
So on a different level. So hopefully, makes it less likely or lets the grass grow on the old way. So
ladies, what we're going to do is we're going to wrap for today. Olga, I'm so glad you joined us. Usually we try to cover one whole Mishnah, but this Mishnah is it's a big one. It really is a big one. And like Sharon said, there's enough to already absorb and contemplate and think and, take into our reality. And what we'll do is next week, we'll pick up like a 30-second review of the Mishnah, and then we'll jump right into the rest of the Mishnah because there's more to unpack here. And there's more that are hopefully practical and real, and feel free to share this link with others who want to learn an hour of Torah together. And this is my week. I finally got my coffee at the same time. That was delayed. I didn't drink coffee yet today.
Thank you.
Thank you, welcome, ladies. It was, as always, I have to say, always a pleasure. Smile for a second, everyone, because I'm gonna take a screenshot. So just take a look on your mark. Get ready. This I'm gonna warn you. Get set. iPhone. Judith, we don't see your beautiful face. 1, 2, 3. Okay, I took one. There you go. All right, ladies, we'll see you soon. Be in touch.
Okay.
Sarah, we're looking forward to tomorrow. Tomorrow's about families and husbands and kids, and it's
I'm
a good
definitely
one.
there. Okay, I'll be there. And Sarah,
so Olga, Sarah's a psychologist, and she does a session for us weekly and dealing with big concepts that we're all dealing with, and she helps us get real practical tools.
What time is it?
same time.
Same time.
And
time.
also the same link.
Same link. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.